Hey folks, it's a very foggy Christmas day. I'm a little bit tired because the rest of the family is sick, so I'm not missing any time with the family right now. We postponed Christmas to hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see when people are feeling better. Um, Today, what I wanted to talk to you about was a question that I got from a couple of different people recently, and that is, where would you recommend or how would you shop for some broodstock, whether that's replacement doelings or mature nannies or open yearlings? Question, I gave them basically the same answer. I'm going to give you basically the same answer here. But first, I want to talk about why it's not going to be just a copy paste of this answer. If you are investing in the stock market and you have an arbitrary rule, you have $1,000 or whatever to invest in the stock market, and you have an arbitrary rule that you can only put it in one stock, and you have to leave it there for a while, you're probably going to do a lot of research on that one stock and try to make the best bet that you can. However, if you don't have that rule and you're sensibly risk averse, what you're going to do is probably something like a diversified investment or mutual fund, something like that, where the stocks go in several different companies, and you may decide over time that you'll move certain stocks to different companies and stuff like that based on their performance, but you're not going to put all of your eggs in one basket. When you're buying a billy, you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, not necessarily all of them, but a lot of eggs in one basket. You buy a billy, he's going to service 25 to 50 does per year. He's going to add to your genetic pool pretty significantly. For does, however, if you remember this graph, it's a numbers game. It's going to be much more the equivalent of your diversified investments. So some of you already know where I'm going with this, but I want to introduce a term, and that is salvage margin. So salvage price is the price of, if you just take a goat to the sale barn, what are you going to get for it? If you buy a billy and you do all the things I talked about, or even some of the things that I talked about, you're going to have to pay a premium for all that. You're not going to be paying salvage price for that. You're not going to be paying sale barn prices, commodity prices, be another term for that. The difference between the price you actually paid, so you paid $500 for a billy, and his salvage price is $250. Okay, your salvage margin is 100%. You're going to take a 100% hit if he just doesn't work out and you take him to the sale barn and you don't really get much out of him. Maybe he gets sick and crappy on you. Maybe he just straight up dies. You don't even get the salvage price out of him. But that salvage margin is what I'm going to be talking about here. When you are investing in 50% of your genetics, give or take, for a billy, it's worth doing all that research and trying to make the best bet that you can, because you're going to have to take you're going to have to take a hit on that salvage margin if things don't work out. With does, I do not recommend that strategy. With does, you should be buying at pretty near to commodity prices, pretty near to that salvage price. You should be keeping that margin small. You should buy about twice as many as you plan to actually keep, and you should cull very hard the first couple of years. And that's whether that's replacement doelings or yearlings or mature does. For me, I would try to know something about where they're coming from, and I'm willing to pay a little bit above salvage price, to have that assurance that, they're not coming out of some confinement operation in Tennessee or something like that, where it's just totally different management, totally different environment, and that call out rate and that performance rate may be even worse. But I definitely would not go out and pay $500 for a doeling. And I say this because I actually have done this in the past, and I learned this lesson, was reminded of this lesson the hard way, to go and buy some doelings and supposedly really high-end genetics, and they just did not work out. And you might say, oh, it must be something with your management. Well, I bought other goats that did work out. And not even close to half of them had to be culled out. While these higher end doelings, all of them had to be culled out. None of them made it. So that's what I recommend. If you're looking for specific commentary on that, on the Kiko side of things, and one of the reasons I don't run a lot of straight Kiko nannies, I do have some that I bought at near commodity prices. But they're kind of hard to find at near commodity prices. There's a lot of people out there that think just because they got the Kiko name on them, they should be worth X number of dollars. Go and pay $400 for a doe. Salvage price, you get $200 back out of them when you cull them out. That's a pretty big loss. So what I would do personally is I would look in like southern Kansas, northern Oklahoma, or even closer if I can find them, and I would buy commodity Spanish meat goat doelings, or maybe open yearlings, replacement yearlings that they decided not to keep. And I would buy them in bulk, and like I said, I would buy twice as many as I plan to actually keep, and then I would cull very hard. And I'd be willing to bet I'd end up with better genetics, for my particular thing. What's good genetics for me is not necessarily good genetics for you or anything else. You're always just making bets, and even if they are perfect genetics for you, well, sometimes that particular one just ain't carrying the bucket very well as far as those genetics go. But you can find, if you wanted to fill up a semi-trailer with commodity meat goat doelings that are not culls, that are proven hardy range animals, that exist on forage and a little bit of supplement in the winter only. You can find those pretty easily with Spanish, and you can fill up a whole semi with those. You'd have a very hard time doing that with Kikos at commodity prices. Not saying it can't be done, but it's a lot more difficult just because of how the market for that particular breed is. I generally would not recommend buying mature nannies, with asterisks. If it's a dispersal or herd dispersal sale of a well-established herd that's been generally profitable and successful, I might. But a lot of times with mature nannies, what you're actually buying is just somebody's culls. They may not call them culls, but if they're downsizing or going from 50 head to 40 head and getting rid of 10 nannies, they're not going to get rid of their best ones. They're going to get rid of their lower end. So I kind of stay away from mature nannies. You kind of can have that problem with replacement doelings or yearlings as well. But it's going to be a lot less prevalent. So yeah, quite a bit different strategy from what I'd suggested in this video when I shop for a billy. And I'd still say, that video is still very relevant when you're shopping for a billy, but on the way that a billy contributes to your herd and your genetics is very different from how does contribute to your business and your herd and your genetics. So that requires two different investment strategies is what I would say.